Everything was all hood. It was at one of the boys' house, the big bro's house. Everything was all professionally done. Bombings on the wall, and the little recording booth was there as well. Federals and police, they were always there. That was pretty hot. That's hot there. Seeing some big looking crim dudes on TV. So that I think that was the attraction there.
All that talk to my gang pull up, and we pull up, and they all did.
Dear Heavenly Father, please watch over me and the brother here and everybody watching. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Alright, my brother. So what's your name and where you from, my bro?
Yeah, so the name is Rocky Masiepu. Born and raised in South Auckland, but I'm actually of Niuean descent. So, yeah, we're 1 in a million, man, so there's not much of us out here. But yeah, been out in South Auckland, Otara specifically, my whole life. And it's been an interesting journey.
It's awesome to have you on, brother. Welcome to the Fallon Show. So this is the man Rocky here. So currently he's actually a youth worker, working with the rangatahi, working with the youth, and education, employment, which is obviously much needed work that you're doing, brother. So big ups for what you're doing, brother. He's also got a crazy story, he's been for a bit. He's a bit of back in the day, he was a bit of a hood star, a bit of a, an artist for Colorway Records, you know what I mean? So he's been in the music industry and, back in the days as well, you know what I mean? Obviously the music industry's changed a lot now, you know what I mean? Especially with the whole scene in Australia sort of coming to the forefront of the whole Pacific Island sort of thing that they got going over there. But back when this guy was rapping, it was pretty much New Zealand and that was it, eh, brother?
Shucks, yeah, man. Hey, shucks, that's quite overwhelming to hear there, Dave. But in context, it's been quite massive and an honourable kind of road to follow through. Not just the music, but just being a young person growing up in Otara. It's quite colourful out here. And I think it's only been enriched from the younger generation, not just in terms of music, but what everyone else is doing, And the music scene itself was quite hectic back then. Man, I think it's been well over 10 years now, 15 plus years. So but that's been a massive pathway, not just for myself, but music in general, hood music, street music, real music. And I've had the actual honor to be alongside the other brothers that were on the label back then.
Most definitely, man. I mean, man, you guys were definitely trendsetters, brother, with the whole Colorway Records thing, man. I mean, even now, man, the whole beats that you guys were coming up, the production value and all that's just insane, brother, even in today's standard, man. So much props, brother, and definitely for what you're doing now, man, working with the youth and that. It's just real honorable work, brother, to give back to the community and things like that. So I guess, so where did you grow up, brother? And so can you paint a picture of what the area was like for, Aussie viewers and people that aren't familiar with the area?
Yeah, shucks, man. I don't know where to start, but I think, it's just like everywhere else you grew up in the country and the world. It's been colourful. It hasn't been that successful growing up. I think, growing up, you would have two avenues you would follow. It would either be sports, education, or the street life. So I was quite reluctant enough to be inspired by my surroundings and the people around me at that time, because growing up, I think in the 80s and 90s, I think I always look back at it as the golden era, and that's something I hold close to my heart, because when you look at how extensive times have changed now from what it was back then, not just the music but in general the time of era, shucks, it's been a massive change. Especially with the trend that everyone's rocking now in terms of styles. Tight jeans, tight tops, and whatnot. You hardly see baggy jeans, although you see that era slowly coming up now with the younger generation, because that's what I see out now. Some people rocking like baggy ass jeans, baggy ass tops, and you can see that. It's like you can see time changing, especially with the music now. And I think music played a heavy part while growing up in South Auckland, Otara, because the music was quite rich, and it still is now. And back then, music for us in terms of local artists. We're looking up to people such as Ermin, Radio Backstab, also known as back in the days, Ermin Lotto. So his music kind of played a part in our lives and our journey, but also having close fellowship of some other local artists such as Mr. Sick, Carlos Diamond. He's also been an influencer in the music pathway that I've carried. But I think growing up, I'm quite fortunate. I made it through primary, I made it through intermediate, and I made it through college. But just because I went through that pathway of school doesn't mean that I graduated like that. I Back in those days, I was actually going to school just to eat lunch, look at the girls, and scab money from other people, and that's what it was. That was the culture back then, and that was cool. I don't know what it's like now, but that
Who
makes
were
sense.
some of the people that you looked up to, brother, as you were growing up? And
Man, I would say around that time, still is it basically family. Older siblings, older cousins. But then, as you grow up older, um, hanging out late at night would be something normal. Playing at the basketball courts late at night would be normal. And then I guess that's where the fellowship generated with a lot of the hood boys now these days. Something a lot of us that have in common, just being around in the community in the neighborhood, just hanging around, hanging out, and then one thing led to another. And then, just like family, everyone knew everyone, and so music was always around. You know, as it's just one of those things where everywhere you go, it's just music. But I think music in general for us, uh, in those eras, um, obviously the 90s eras is quite rich for us as we look back now. Because Sid and his team were obviously doing music at that same time or a little bit earlier. And then, if I can remember right, Colorway obviously came about into fruition with the local boys. So much props to those guys too. It wasn't just all about me. I was an artist that came on later because they already had formed the group and the record label back then. So I happened to be just already in the music scene already with another local artist. So I was kind of like a person, like a hype man for Los Carlos. And then I think I kind of looked up. Well, I pretty much looked up to him in terms of music. And then I think that because, as I said earlier, everyone knows everyone. If you're from the neighborhood, if you're from the same neighborhood, everybody knows everyone. And I think that's where you know uh, the crossover with mixing music together came a thing with working with other artists, such as you know Colorway, and having Sid and his team come up through from that transition in time.
so yeah,
Choice, choice.
so when did you jump onto Colorway, brother, and get all that started?
I think somehow we crossed paths. I crossed paths with the boys in the neighborhood. Start off with drinking and hanging around, and then one thing led to another. Before I know it, I got invited to the studio, and then yeah, it just went from there. Had a meeting, had a hui with the boys, and then asked to jump on and say, "Oh yeah, why not?" Cool. But I didn't look at it as anything about money or for money. It was always for the love of music, for music, and I think that's how everything just kind of built from there. And so yeah, I came on later on when the artists were already established. They were already making beats. They were already making music, and but it was pretty bad. It was dope, man. Back in those days, back then.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, nah, it looked dope too, brother. Like, who sort of made up the team, bro? I guess of like production and all of that thing, because bro, the beats were mean, bro. You know what I mean? Like all the songs and that, all the beats, they just were like real
Yeah,
professional and like this was like, were you guys recording like at a proper studio, or was like in a house, or?
yeah. Sharks was just down the road from here too. Everything was all hood. It was at one of the boys' house. The big bro's house. And what they did was they changed their sleep out, their garage into a studio. So even though it was hood, everything was all professionally done. Like man, there were bombings on the wall, and the little recording booth was there as well. Um, but I think the sounds of it kind of like justifies itself as well. From production to writing and just having that whole aura and energy or something else back then. So yeah, everything was all it was a home studio, but everything was professionally done. So I give it up to the two boys, and rest in peace to face killer Paul Dalton, because he also played a massive part in that. He was part of the production, the beats and the recording as well as Fizz, known as Fizz back then. He's known as the Prophet now. So the bro's still doing some beats, making some mad music now. So that's still in the works. That's still cooking up, and yeah. So those are the two guys behind the production and mastering and stuff and so forth.
Like, how was like, so were you guys like at this time, bro? Like, how was like the police and that's attitude towards you guys and the music? And say you yourself, was there much experience with the police and sort of hassling yous or anything like that, or
Oh,
public perception?
definitely. Sharks, man. Yeah, it's funny you bring that up. Definitely, federals and the police. They were always there. Uh, for certain reasons. Because shucks, man, when you look at it back now, everything was under the radar. So when you think about it from a logistic point of view, you've got a bunch of dudes, a bunch of grown ass men putting out music coming out from Otara, that kind of transitioned into a pathway of mainstream. When you think about it, that was pretty hot. That's hot there. Seems a big looking crim dudes on TV. So I think that was the attraction there, and kind of put everything under the radar. But it was all for the love of music. From what I thought, from what I still think now, because man, sometimes passion takes you places, man, and kind of that's where it took us. That's where it took the boys. And the feeling of being in the studio and just creating, being a creative person, music in general is unexplainable, man. You can't explain the feeling. Everywhere we went, it was pretty hot, like pretty hot in terms of, man, obviously things were bugged, man, being watched like an eagle. Mm.
Mm,
And history tells itself, man. It explains itself, but
mm.
shucks, who would have thought?
Man, you guys are like the Otara version of like Death Row, man, or something like that, bro. I swear.
Man,
Like, because so for my Aussie viewers, that people that don't know about Colorway, like, you guys were, yeah, pretty influential, man, in the whole scene. And bro, like you said, man, like this was
wow.
back when like Bebo, you know what I mean? Like this was like before Facebook and like
Uh,
YouTube was like just coming out, you know what I mean? Like just people were
mm.
just hearing about it back then.
Yeah, I mean, I can only say so much on behalf of myself and on behalf of the artist and the label. Um, but I think, if I remember correctly, I think it wasn't about the charts. I think for us, with the brothers and the label itself. So when you think about it, we're some hood ass dudes, like street gutter people. So actually, to have the music and the two compilations on mainstream platforms actually selling in Marbex, sounds. Um, what else was there? So all these mainstream platforms where you sell in the shop, like these are CDs. So when you think about it, some hood ass people from Otara having their material, their music, and mainstream shelves selling next to Savage, Aradna, PNC, all those other artists, international artists, local artists. That was a big deal. That was massive, And I don't think when you look back at history, um, anyone else can say that. But I think having that exposure out into the media kind of shone more light, and it kind of you know uh, put it on the map. And within saying that, I think the community, our community, our Otara people kind of looked at that as well. It's like, wow, these guys are cracking it. These guys are actually putting music on the shelves. So that's how I looked at it anyway. That was my point of view. And shout out to the big homie and everyone else that was behind the label, because sharks, that's the golden era. That was Otara.
Yeah.
Amongst many other things, amongst many other things. So
Yeah, golden
yeah.
era, all right, my bro. So like also then where did it sort of progress from there, brother? You know what I mean, with Colorway and you and your rapping career. So where did it sort of progress from there?
Oh man, shucks. I think once everything kind of de-escalated down, obviously because I wouldn't say the label crashed, but it was on a standstill. Obviously, certain brothers went on holiday. They went on a long holiday. the jail and prison and stuff like that, and things just got frozen. So I think for me myself, I kind of went back to mahi, but still having that desire with music. So I think with music, it wasn't like I wanted to put out an album. I was just thankful enough that I had the opportunity to be a part of that time where we could record music and put it out. It was just the whole being involved and being creative and writing music. So I
Mm-hmm.
think for me, I continued going back to work. Shucks, I went through various jobs, but still writing and creating music. And everyone's got to survive. Everyone's got to try and make their bread and butter somehow,
Yeah.
whether it's legit or not. Everybody's got to get money, especially with these struggling tough times, man. Look at the petrol now; it's like $3.20. I was like, what the hell?
Bro.
Did to live for bread and milk?
Oh
So
no,
times are still
brother.
tough. Times are
Um,
different, but it's still tough.
yeah, it's tough. All right, man. You want to hit the bloody countdown, mate? You know what I mean? That's the picture.
Oh,
Looking at that receipt there, brother. Far out.
shucks, bro.
We
It's the
soldier
GST for me.
on. Yeah,
Uh,
we soldier on. We soldiering on. But
uh,
well, bro, like how was that for you, man? Like when things sort of did start, like you said, people were going to jail and things like that. Like how was that sort of shattering for you, brother? Like having that happen and or
yeah, or in some ways, yeah. But I think it is what it is. You know, Colorway. Um, in terms of
well, what can you can
music.
you can you sort of explain what that name means, bro? Colorway.
So from what so yeah, as I said, man, I can only say so much for myself, and from what I remember back in those times, it actually is Colorway is just pretty much an abbreviation for doing things our way. That's what I mean. Like having the freedom to do things your way without being tied to saying, "Hey, you owe us this," or "You do us this." You owe us so many albums. You know how music now and these days you got to be real mindful and sharp on what you're getting yourself into. Well,
Yeah,
that's what
you do.
that's what Conway kind of stood for everyone else. Um, that's what I meant, really. Doing things our own way.
So, like, so from there, brother. So going back to Mahi, how did that sort of and then still doing music as well. How did that sort of transition into what you're doing now, brother, with the whole youth work and how long have you been doing youth work for now?
Oh, I've been in the sector for about I'd say about 10 years plus now. 10 years plus, and that's through voluntary work, working in the community, and working for various organizations. But I think, this youth game stuff, I've been in my whole life, you know, and I've kind of inspired from music. There was a moment and point of time where we were sitting in the lab in church and in the studio, bro. And I've got a whole lot of gang of footage that, no one has seen where I'm in the studio and I'm recording on a phone. It wasn't an iPhone. It was like when these video phones came out. I started recording people in the studio, and around me in the studio was a group of bees. The killer bees back then, which are now obviously patch members now. So I saw that. I was like, wow, shucks. That was my first foundation into look on what youth work was like, because I was a part of it and I was being surrounded by energy. That energy was raw, was creative. All the boys were writing. Like these weren't even rappers, but they were full of energy that they picked up the pen and started writing and started going in the studio and recording and mucking around. So I saw that. I was like, fuck, that's cool. Because that was creativity for one, and that was euphoric for two. So I came into a point of time where I kind of led myself into retail, working into retail. And it wasn't until I stood in that shop, and I thought to myself, shucks, can I really make a career out of euphoric? Can I get into, what do I need to do to get into euphoric and get the money, get into money? So yeah, but I'm quite thankful for everything that I went through in terms of being associated, affiliated, no regrets, because I wouldn't have be where I am today without that kaupapa, without seeing that kaupapa through my own eyes and through the life that we live and what all the boys have lived, and it's all love. It's all for the love of music. And, passion can only take you so far, but it's the hard yards, it's the hard work, it's the hard money you put into it. Whether you got to wake up at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, yeah, brother. Yeah, someone's got to do it, and also gives you that heart, eh, brother? Gives you the heart for it, man, which is so important. Um,
Mm, all
what's
day.
so yeah, brother. So how was it, man? So how is it? You know what I mean? I'm doing what you're doing now, brother, and
Where
I guess how has the area changed? You know what I mean? So you're still working in Otara and South Auckland and things like that.
yeah, um, yeah, hard man. I'm still trying to, keep my ear to the streets with the youngins, and it's obviously it's been quite hot right now. With everything else that's going on in the community. But I love it, man. Whether you pay me $5 an hour, $100 an hour, I'll still do it because it's not about the money. It's about making that change. It's about setting that pathway, and it's about utilizing your history, your past kaupapa, as well as your whakapapa, to utilize and to make it sound like selling people the dream. Some of these kids right now, they're struggling to get back into education or get into education or try and stay in mainstream education. And there are so many pathways where we can utilize and help and support our our rangatahi. So for me, man, I love it, man. And it comes down to engagement and relationship. Anyone that's working in the youth game right now, they would know it comes down to your engagement, your genuine engagement, and your conversation. Could be something like this, sharing bread over the screen or sharing food, literally food, sitting down, and that's when you get to understand. Shucks, man, this young person's been through a lot. Or shucks, okay, I can help this young person. I can put them in here. It varies, eh? I mean, there's quite a lot of challenges, social issues, drug issues, but I think that the hardship that I'm seeing now is addiction, not not that addiction, not the drug addiction, but the console addiction. There's an addiction on gaming, bro.
Bro,
Yeah, that's what I've been seeing in my experiences through some young ones are going to sleep like early as in the morning. They're up all night. They go to sleep 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 2 hours sleep, and they're back on the gaming. So it's that kind of impact, but it's also I think I would say really the poverty, financial hardship, poverty hardship, just the struggle of having something to eat, you know. And I think I've been quite fortunate to be in that space to offer some kind of support, whether it's food parcels or just having a feed and just trying to mentor and encourage, that there is hope. But it's about utilizing what you can do to access things for the young person as well.
yeah,
Mm.
yep. Like it's crazy because on the news recently I saw, they were going on about, you know what I mean, the ram raids and things like that, the amount of ram raids and all of that, and they attributed it, yeah, to the rise in it because, there's not enough cameras, you know what I mean? Pretty much there's not
Right.
enough police. There's no mention of the price of living, you know what I mean? No mention of you know what I
You
mean?
know what? You're 100% right. You're
Mm.
100% right, bro. Yeah, no, I didn't realize that, man, that's been extensive for ages, for many, many, many years, you know? And but you know what, man? I think they add fuel to the fire. Media adds fuel to the fire. What I mean by that is what they're actually doing is they're encouraging more people. They're encouraging more young people to do it because that's the hot topic right now. So once they see it online, they see it on the news, they see it all over social media platforms. It's going to encourage more young people to do it
Yeah,
because
that's the
it
thing.
hasn't stopped. It's kept going. It's giving people confidence. It's giving young people confidence to get out there and make it earn and get that easy buck. But man, everything is a risky.
Yeah, no, well, that's right, brother. That's right, man. Well, we're sort of coming to the end here, brother. You know what I mean, man. Bro, thanks for jumping on, brother. It's been cool, man. Having the
All good,
OG on here,
easy.
brother. A,
Oh nah,
a
not a
celebrity.
OG, man. Not
Yeah,
a
well,
OG.
in the rap game,
Nah.
rap OG. You know what I
Oh,
mean. Credit where
shucks, man.
credit's due. Credit where credit's due.
Oh,
But
shucks, hey, bro.
well, do you sort of have any messages, brother, for the rangatahi out here, bro, or the young fellas out there, or any messages to anyone, bro, before we wrap this up?
Yeah, never lack faith. Always have a dream, but always have faith. And what I mean by that is, stick fat, stick to your guns, man. And I know life is a struggle. Sometimes life is hard, but you got to keep pushing. You got to keep going, keep the wheels turning, because somewhere, somehow, you do matter, and you're important. All our young people are as important just as our old folks. Everybody's important, and I think it's only a matter of time until things come into fruition. So never lack faith, man, and stick to your guns, and yeah,
Exactly
just
right,
keep
man.
pushing.
Stick to your guns, man. Keep pushing. Faith can move mountains, mate. Don't worry about that. You just gotta keep it,
Definitely.
and don't let the world talk you out of it, man. For sure.
All right, bro. No, I appreciate you, Dave. Thank you, man, and thank you for allowing me to jump on and should have share a bit of yarn and whatnot. But I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Much love, my bro. Talk soon.